So, welcome back to Bookish, everybody. As you know, we're your program on authors, thinkers, and the literary life produced by the Southern California News Group in conjunction with the Bay Area News Group. And I am, as ever, Sam Dunn, the premium editor. Yeah, sure, I've said this 500 times and I just messed it up. I'm the senior editor of premium content here. And I want to, as always, give a big thank you to our Reader Reward subscribers for supporting our programs. Without you, there is nothing. So if you are a Reader Reward subscriber attending tonight, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate from our Vida book company in Tustin, California. And last month's winner was Patty Huntner. Patty, we hope you're enjoying the books from Arvida. And what else do I have to tell you? If you're not a subscriber yet, why aren't you a subscriber yet? Please become a stakeholder in local journalism. Let me tell you, folks, it matters now more than it ever has. In Southern California, go to scng.com/subscribe to find your local paper. And in the Bay Area, go to bayareanewsgroup.com/reader services. Also, if you've missed any of our past programs, go to scng.com/virtual programs and check them out. And while you're checking them out, check out our cool Bookish swag. Our special guest is going to be up in just a second. I know you're excited about this, but I want to remind you that if you have questions, and I really hope you do, use the Q&A feature on your Zoom toolbar. If you just want to add a comment, use the chat feature found on your screen. But if you add your question in the chat feature, I probably won't see it, alas. And as always, you won't miss a thing because the link is going to be sent to you after the show. And so you're going to be able to review it and share it and do whatever you want. It's always also posted at scng.com virtual events, as well as on our YouTube channel. And now it is my extreme pleasure to introduce our guest. I wrote in a recent, oh no, go ahead, Lydia, come back on. The reveal is good. We like it. I wrote in a recent interview, hey girl, I wrote in a recent interview that in a pocket of the literary world, and in fact, in many pockets of the literary world, when you say the name Lidia Yuknavitch, it's like invoking the revered name of a high priestess. And it's true, she is kind of a high priestess. And if you're not one of the converted yet, let me give you some context around my dear Lydia. Her widely acclaimed memoir, The Chronology of Water, was a finalist for the Penn Center USA Award for Creative Nonfiction and a winner of the Oregon Book Award Reader's Choice. Following that success, she is the national best-selling author of 4 novels, Thrust, The Book of Joan, Dora, A Head Case, and The Small Backs of Children, which was the winner of the 2016 Oregon Book Award's Ken Kesey Award for Fiction, as well as the OBA Reader's Choice Award. She's also, yeah, sure, that, blah, blah, blah. She also published a critical book on war and narrative, Allegories of Violence, and The Misfits Manifesto, a book based on her TED Talk that's garnered more than, get this, folks, 4 million views, was published in 2017. Then there's Verge, her collection of short stories, which I love. Lydia founded the workshop series Corporeal Writing in Portland, Oregon, where she teaches both in person and online. She is actually Dr. Yuknavitch because she received her doctorate in literature from the University of Oregon. But she's here to talk about her newest memoir, Reading the Waves, which was published last month. That's a lot. Hey, girl, how are you?
Hello, I love you.
I love you too. I'm so grateful that you're here. We talked a little bit before about Reading the Waves, but I just want to, go over a few things again. Reading the Waves really does read like a companion piece, a conversation with your earlier memoir, The Chronology of Water. I want to talk about why this, why now, and the salmon who told you to write the book. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, I like how you're wording that. I do think they're in dialogue with each other. That's a cool way to think about it. When I was writing Chronology of Water, I was so invested in finding how to create a form of expression that matched my experience. And everything on the page was about inventing expressive modes that could capture what it felt like to have the life I had.
Yeah.
And this book isn't that. This book, and why salmon are important, this book is like a return.
Yeah.
like a series of returns or more of a circle motion, like a woman looking back
Yes.
or entering and re-entering over and over again. And so that's, you feel what I mean? That's like such a different motion than, you know, I must express.
Let's find a way to put into words this experience and
Yeah.
invent a form to carry that experience.
Yeah. And so the salmon that I talk to, as one does,
As you do, as you do, please continue on.
spoke to me in a river about, making the returns. And the message I think I received, or the message I believe I received, had to do with the idea that your returns are always a chance for you to shapeshift.
That.
And it's not like I'd never thought that thought before, or taught it, or saw it in someone else's work and was inspired by it. But probably, and here's the rest of the answer, Sam, and you'll get it, menopause.
But yeah, hello. Talk about that. It's a creative crucible, right?
Right, right. And I didn't want to die there.
Yeah.
Didn't want it to be true that I had to give up on anything, or, I wanted to find out what was magical inside the crucible, and that's where the salmon helped me. It's like, make your returns and shape shift. Don't make your returns and give up. And for me, that was important.
I love that because at menopause, where the metaphor is usually withering, right? The drying up, the withering, the constricting. And you're against this is against the opposite of that, right? It's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this idea of shape shifting, I know we're always shape shifting like our whole lives, but we forget.
yes.
And menopause is one of those places on the journey where you can forget that shape shifting is how you keep changing and growing, because you get bummed out. Like, there are things and they're hard and they have to your body and it takes years and you're like, what the hell? Um, but that bringing shape shifting back to the center of my life, and
Yeah.
I seem to have punched beyond menopause at this point. Um, but that shape shifting idea, I hope people really think about that and try to feel about that, because it's changing. It's you changing. So you got to look for where the change is.
I love that. There's a quote that you have in the introduction that I want to read for everybody who haven't read the book yet, who must read the book, who will run out and buy the book right after this conversation. But you say in the intro, I mean to make a series of returns to the people and places that marked me in ways I have carried around in my body most of my life. I believe our bodies are carriers of experience. I mean to ask if there is a way to read my own past differently, using what I have learned from literature, how stories repeat and reverberate and release us from the tyranny of our mistakes, our traumas, and our confusions. Girl, I'm gonna, if I had a place that was big enough to tattoo that on my chest, maybe I do, I would tattoo it on my chest. Talk to me about the body and writing and because I always think of you as a very tactile author. How do stories arise from feeling? How does that work for you? How does narrative become embodied for you, I guess?
I think that's true about me. That's an astute observation. People can tell me things and it doesn't go in. Like, I have to put my body through it. Like, even if I know they're right, I'm like, whatever. Which is why I wasn't a very good student. Um, but you're right. I am very physical. I'm very tactile. I like to engage senses to understand things. I may be closer to animals than my human kin. Um, but the thing about bodies that has really been my life work is that I actually believe we're all walking around carrying everything that's ever happened to us in our bodies.
At
And
a cellular level?
maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to be right about that. It's just when I think of things that way, they make sense.
Mm,
So if there's story material floating around in our bodies, um, it's a vibrant, inspiring, interesting thing to do to touch them or go find them,
mm,
see what they have to say. And
mm.
the other thing that's beautiful about them is sort of Virginia Woolfy. Um, if they're in there and you think of the inside of our bodies as a landscape or an ocean, they're moving, which means there's more than one arrangement possible.
Love that.
And when crap happens to us in life, we act like that one time it happened to us is the whole story.
Right. If as if it's fixed.
Yeah. As if it's fixed. And what I'm talking about is literally the opposite of that. That
Mm,
there was the event, and yes, it happened, but then there is what we do with the event, and that is carry the story.
yeah.
In that storytelling space, very liberatory things are possible that are not fixed.
That is so interesting. Oh, you and I might I don't know. Let me try to articulate a question here. You have said that you have said that this is a memoir, but this is really not. You don't mean to mine experience from your life as if they're fixed entities, but isn't there also objective truth? How do
Of
you?
course, of course. I mean, I guess it's not so much that I want to erase or tear down the idea that objective truth exists. It's more like, and this is a Wolfie idea too. It's more like objective truth or what happened, the event itself is like a node, Node,
DE?
and the node has all these tendrils coming out of it that were smells and sounds and, as you mentioned earlier, tactile things and perceptions and other vantage points.
Mm,
And
yeah,
I'm less and less interested in the node,
no, everything around.
including the entire, octopus arms of everything else.
I love that. Another thing about form that I've heard you say is that for you, fiction and nonfiction, the difference is membrane thin. You've used the word membrane. How is something when you're writing, how does it appear to you as fiction or nonfiction? When does it start to have a label? I'm doing this as if I'm seaweed in the water. I don't
I love it. Can we just do that? Can we
what?
I'll do it with you?
See what you inspire in me, Lydia. What the hell am I doing here?
Let's
Anyway,
all of us, everybody do this.
everybody wave.
That is so beautiful. Um, everything comes to me, through me, from me, around me as fiction,
Mm,
as story. I guess the better word would be story. Because the word story doesn't make that hard line between fiction and nonfiction because they're both story, right?
mhm. Yes.
And so when I'm inside the story space that is so-called nonfiction, I just want to point out I'm still making choices I'm still curating experience. I'm
Yes.
still turning the volume up and down on character and sound and action and description and setting. And those are the same elements that are put into play across the field of so-called fiction writing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Only in fiction writing, maybe it's true that some doors close in terms of your narrative options
Mhm.
differently than they do in nonfiction. Like, and in nonfiction, some fiction doors close.
Right.
Like, you're not supposed to just make crap up and say,
You're not supposed to invent people, for
right,
instance,
right, right.
although
I mean, even if, okay, let's just press on that. I was almost a philosophy major, so everybody look out.
that's too. Side note, I have a minor in philosophy too. I never.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so
All
let's
right.
press on it a little bit. So you're in nonfiction and you're not supposed to make people up, but the moment you choose to create the person you're thinking of, you're making a conjuring. You're making a representation of a person you knew, like
Yeah,
my mother, for example.
right,
It is not my mother on the page. It is a construction I have
right,
made as an artist.
right.
Even at that level, nonfiction is a series of creations or conjurings. And on a different day at a different time, if I'd eaten a taco instead of pasta, I might have done something different on the page. So does
Yeah,
that make it more or less true? I think that's a philosophically silly question.
interesting. It's that representation explanation is also true of the protagonist narrator, right? We're making a representation of ourselves on the page.
Always,
Yeah,
always.
yeah,
Also, when you make a fictional character, you're probably putting yourself and everyone you know in it,
absolutely,
whether
right.
you know it or not.
Yeah, Martin Amis, you are always reading the autobiography of a writer's mind. Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
yeah. I want to ask, I want to ask about this great quote you have toward the end, and I asked you this in our conversation too. You say in the book, "I've chosen to spend my life creating literature as resistance." And I would love to talk about the meaning of that sentence for you. What has been the creation of resistance in literature for you?
Well, so some of us walk around in life and we bump into the stories culturally and in family and in religion or in the systems you enter, education, and the stories we bump into about who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to live and what kind of person we're supposed to be and what kind of relationships we're supposed to have. We bump into those and we know it's all wrong. Like we don't fit. We don't even want to fit. And then we feel alienated and isolated and oh no, what do I do? And I have spent my life writing love letters to those among us who have those feelings. And the reason I call it resistance literature is because I think it's magnificent that we're on the edges writing other stories alive all the time that move around and kind of chafe.
Yeah.
It's the more conventional story of who we're supposed to be instead of joining it. And I think we need all the kinds of storytelling and ways of being in the world, but I happen to be kindred with the group of people who want to be agitating
Yeah.
and resisting. And it's the same work oysters do.
Okay. Not what I would have anticipated. Please explain.
A pearl comes from agitation.
Of
Pearl
course.
is sand agitating.
Of course. And the
And
pearl.
so, I'm not saying one way of doing things is better or worse or more important or less important. The mainstream stories are cool. I cry too when I read mainstream stories or watch mainstream films. We need all of it. I just want to, you know, sound the trumpet that the agitator, the resistance nations are beautiful and cool, and it's okay for us to love each other and keep doing work together.
I love that. And also it occurs to me in this moment of historical erasure, um, when stories are being taken down from government websites, that any witnessing of our own personal history is some act of resistance.
That's right.
We tell
That's
our stories, there are too many of us, right?
that's right. But if we stay silent and we don't start getting really mouthy really fast, the erasure that they're attempting will work.
That's right. That's right. So on other fun topics, I want to ask about people, writing about other people. You know, Sartre said hell is other people, and it's certainly the case when you're trying to wrangle people that you live with and intertwine with on the page. And in this book, you write about so many people whose lives have intertwined with yours. Your first husband who died or was killed, or unclear. You write about your son, you write about your parents, you write about students, you write about friends, you write about lovers. And I'm just wondering how you approach, yeah, I think we all have to wrangle with how we approach rendering these real people in our lives. And do you have a code? Do you have a process? What is that for you?
Well, I try to remember. I mean, I don't know if I succeeded or failed at this. Maybe someone can help me and I'll learn from it. Um, but I didn't try to write the story of any of those people you named. I,
Yes.
I tried to write the story of how I had a relational experience with them and how their being in my life rearranged my DNA
Yes.
molecularly.
Yes.
And so I pulled back from and I wrote about this as you know, I pulled back from like the big dramatic things I know about them. And I pulled back from, let me tell you about this person who was my mother or whatever. And I tried to stand in a different relation to what happened between us. So when I was in the drafting process, I literally would write different sequences from a different vantage point about a single event to see if anything changed.
Yes.
And it did.
It's fabulous.
And so then I would revise with this new information, like, if I stand outside the house and look through the window,
That's
she
how
looks completely different,
I love that.
you
Yes.
know?
In many ways, I asked that question because in many ways I feel Reading the Waves is a masterclass in this because I do. I mean, I really do. Because it's always turning back on the protagonist narrator, the Lydia on the page.
Yeah,
I tell my students we're really always, when we're engaged in personal narrative, we're always interrogating the catastrophe of our own personality.
totally.
And that is what I felt was so beautifully done here. So many things, Lydia, really, honestly.
I so agree with that sentence you just said. I would be such a lucky student in a class of yours. I would be kissing your feet and bowing. That's so important what you're saying. Also, like the Lydia on the page, hopefully she changes from sequence to sequence and she shapeshifts because there's no unified protagonist. There's no unified self.
I
There's
love
this self that this is our new.
It's our new thing. One thing I don't have it in my notes to talk about, but it just always occurs to me the use of scientific language that you employ. You might be a semi-philosophy major, but really you're a closet science geek, aren't you? I mean,
Oh, totally. I wanted to be an astrophysicist really bad, but I was incredibly terrible at math, in a fairly stereotypical way. But the other thing is I'm have some traits like this that will reveal me if I say it to you. I loved numbers. When I was a kid and people talked to me, I saw numbers around what they were saying.
why
So
do you do that? Have you ever written that? That is a
I,
new piece of information. Wow.
I mean, I wrote about it in like one essay and then I was immediately shy and backed off of that. But I would write about it today. Like I have no problem with it. But so I had an intimate relationship with numbers, but I sucked badly. I failed so many math tests because their language of math was not my intimacy with numbers. So, but I did want to be an astrophysicist and I maintain, like, you have no idea how much time I spend on space sites.
Such a geek. You are such a nerd. I
Oh,
love you.
totally.
I love how that scientific language weaves into the poetic of your narrative. I'm always entranced by it. Um, Let me ask, I have a couple questions, but I don't want to ignore. I have a question here from Kathleen Brady, one of our regulars here. Hi, Kathleen.
Hey,
Kathleen
Kathleen.
says, Hey, Kathleen, do you, Lydia, have a daily writing routine? And is there more to say about Ken Kesey?
As some of you know, I do not have a daily writing routine. I failed at that for about 20 years before I finally realized that that wasn't a good process for me. I just thought I was a failure and that
Mm.
sucked. So instead of spending the rest of my life feeling like a failure, I embraced what is my process, which is I ruminate internally for as long as it takes, which could mean going on walks or swimming or sleeping and dreaming or eating really good food.
I'm so glad you said sleeping. Anyway, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
because dreams.
Yeah. I used to
Hello.
sleep when I'm writing books, when I used to be writing books, I would literally sleep with my laptop because I
Yeah,
would, and then all of a sudden things would just make sense. They
yeah,
did.
I'm pro sleep being part of the writing process. I'm positive it's part of mine. But my process is more moves more like the way ocean waves do. And I know, so cliche. Of course I'm gonna say water, but it's literally true for me. So it's building kinetically in me before it's anywhere near coming out of my fingers onto a page. And so I'm not scared of that anymore. So if it takes weeks and I'm not typing, that's fine. If it takes years, that's fine. If it takes a weekend and then it's there, that's like, I don't care what the duration is because I believe the wave will come. And I got a little nervous when it took years. I admit, I get, when it was more than a year, it makes me nervous, but I still trust it.
Lydia, I can't tell you how liberating that is, not only for myself, but for I'm sure many writers who are listening to this and will listen to this, because there is the tyranny of the writing, MFA program where you have to get up at 5 o'clock every day, right? Touch your work every day, otherwise you're going to lose it. And there's that paranoid sense that you're going to lose it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that that works for some people, and
And
I'm happy for them. Like, great. If that works for you, do it that way. What bums me out is when those of us who can't work that way or who are deadened by being tried, someone trying to train us to work that way. I just want to be the cheerleader for these other processes. You're the only one who can invent your process, and then you have to embrace it and insist on it.
embrace it. And I love that. Thank you. Speaking of which, only a couple more questions, and then I will let you get back to your life. But I did
Oh,
want to
please
ask.
don't make me go back to my million.
Okay, you don't have to go back. Go back to the water. Just so you know, everybody, I don't like the water. She lives in the water, and I call her my mermaid sister because I'm kind of the molecular opposite of that. But anyway, I want to talk about writing, teaching writing, and what teaching, because that's also part of this book. Your process as a teacher. Um, what does that do in terms of both your writing process and your personal life? How is teaching, what's the cliche here? How has it enriched you? How does it inform you? Because I think of teaching, and I think that's integral to your essence.
Oh God, yes. It's in some ways teaching has been my primary relationship, but I would probably say that about my relationship to art too. But when you and I talked before, I have to qualify it by saying when I say teaching, I don't mean professor at the front of the class throwing down the wisdom upon students. When I say teaching, I mean kind of old school, working in collaboration and community with whoever's next to you
Mm,
and trying to create a kinetic energy between all of us, not in a hierarchical way, but in a lateral way that means we carry and share and pass and carry and share, like, and keep that energy in motion for as long as we can so
yeah.
that more people's pilot lights stay lit. And that's what I think teaching is. So if that's teaching, which it is for me, it's been the profoundly humanizing experience of my life. And it's probably what's kept me on the planet to be in relation to others, because I am by nature a complete isolate. I would be a classic hermit. And I may be headed there still.
Don't. We need you. We love you. Don't
Oh,
go.
look at, see this white? It's
Yeah.
looking. I think I'm like entering my sea witch phase, and it may include like a hermit element. I'm just saying.
Okay, we're forewarned.
It's
Thank you.
signs.
Let us come and visit you in your sea cave witch. Okay, couple questions. Stephen Carrillo, hey Stephen, he says, Lydia, are there other writers you get a strong sense of the shape shifting you're describing?
Sure. I mean, some of the writers who have inspired me, like obviously Ursula K. Le Guin and Octavia Butler, and I would include Virginia Woolf and Clarice Lispector and a German woman writer named Christa Wolf, um, and Marguerite Duras,
Of course.
yeah, and Gertrude Stein. And they're writers who appear, I bow to them in this book. I mention them.
Yes.
Um, but every genre and every style and every epoch of writing has had certain artists within it who moved away from trying to represent so-called reality or realism and moved toward what's the relationship between our real lived experience and the magic that surrounds us. And those are the writers I'm most interested in. There's a writer, Han Kang, who wrote The Vegetarian, who I'm obsessed with. I think I've read everything Murakami has written. And my favorite book of all time, this will just make it really clear where I land, is Frankenstein.
Of course, Shelley. Of course. Yeah. That's interesting. We've never talked about that. Next time I see you in person, we're going to have a Frankenstein conversation.
Yeah, but be prepared. I don't read it the way anyone else reads it. Like I got my whole different story
Yeah.
going.
Why am I not surprised, Lidia Yuknavitch? Why am I not surprised? Hey, guess what? We have a question from our friend Dylan Landis. Hey,
Hello,
Dylan.
Dylan.
She says, Lydia, greetings. If you used to see numbers when people talk, do you have a form of synesthesia? For example, are the days of the week gendered for you, or are letters associated with colors, etc.? Does this affect your work? Good one.
I do have synesthesia. As a child, I had the numbers thing I described. And then later in life, I also had auditory hallucinations for which I was prescribed lithium, which was terrible at the time. When I was a teen, that's what they were prescribing for things.
Yeah.
Later in life, the numbers thing kind of got quieter, but the colors thing got bigger. And when I say the colors thing, I mean when people are communicating sentences to me, sometimes the words emit colors, and sometimes the human speaking emits colors. But don't worry, I'm not going to talk about it very much. How it's impacted my writing is you'll see that in the novels I write. Synesthesia is all over certain characters and certain scenes, and I don't point to it with a stick and go, look, synesthesia. But it's all over in my work because I want to make it the center of being and not some affliction on the side that we study.
Not some other thing, but a central.
Yeah, and it's quite common with artists of all sorts. It's not as unusual and uncommon as people like to make it sound like it is. It's actually a love language between lots and lots of artists.
Yeah. I think Dylan Landis's novel, Rainy Royal, Rainy, the title character, she has synesthesia.
Yes.
I think that nod, Dylan. We can't see you, but nod if I'm correct. Yes. Um, one more question. What are you reading? Oh,
Uh,
wait, more questions. What are you reading? And then another final question. What are you reading?
um, lately, don't laugh at me. I've been reading star maps from the 1800s.
Oh,
And
I thought you were going to say star maps like in Hollywood, like as in Barbara, where's Barbara Streisand? But no. Okay. Continue, please.
I'm really interested in the way our our navigational truths change from epoch to epoch.
Mm,
And so old cartographies of any sort fascinate me because everybody thought that was reality. Just like whatever ours are right now, we're convinced that's how crap
right.
is. This is reality. When I know for a fact, probably before um, my life is over, our truths about the universe are going to change. And so all our maps about everything and our truths about what human biology is in relation to that are probably going to change. So I'm
Mm.
fascinated by that. So I'm looking at some really old maps. And I know that's a bummer answer because people really want to know, what books are you reading? Books are not my favorite thing.
You write great ones, but they're not your favorite thing.
No, I read all the time, but I'm reading maps right now. So I'm just telling you the truth.
Oh, I love it. I would expect nothing else but the truth from you. What haven't I talked about that you really want to say about reading the waves?
Oh, no one, I think people are scared to ask me about sorrow.
Mm,
Or they're not scared to ask me, but it's like people think if we talk about sorrow, it will be too big of a bummer. But I'm always reminded of our friend Ross Gay,
yes.
and he talks a lot about how he's a melancholy person.
Hmm.
But one of his books, the Book of Delights, is one of the most joyous exaltation song cycles I've ever seen. And so, what I want to say about sorrow is that, sad is not bad. And sorrow, the extent to which certain people can feel deep sorrow all the way through, which we tend to call trauma or pain.
Hmm.
But being able to feel sorrow all the way to the bottom of the ocean is also the extent to which it is possible to feel joy or laughter. So people who engage the deep feelings and travel the deep journeys into the difficult feelings are also capable of touching the glory, the sacred, the beautiful, the joyous, the laugh your ass off. And it's kind of our responsibility to teach people about that instead of hiding in the cave because we feel too much or, you know, everything hurts you or your sadness is too much for me. Well, let's stand up and lock arms together so it's less lonely and remind people we're here to show you how to feel deep emotion in 360. And one of those spots on the circle is going to be sorrow. But sorrow has a relationship to joy.
And now I'm speechless. Honestly, honestly, I just teared up as you were speaking. Thank you. Because this seems a particular moment. There's always loss in every moment, but this seems a particular moment of loss and sorrow.
It is, it is, which means those of us who are strong in our experience of sorrow have to help teach people, oh, look, joy is right behind your head because it's always in relation to these other emotions. Let's remind each other, let's teach each other.
I love you so much,
I
Lydia.
love you.
All right. Okay, you guys get this book. Just run, don't walk. Just get the book. Here it is. Just get it
And do this.
and do this. This is the new thing. This is our thing. All right. I'll talk to you later, babe.
Okay, I love you.
I'm
Love
so
you
glad you
all.
came. Mwah. You're getting a lot of love.
Love to all of you. I see you.
You goddess, you high priestess.
You are.
No, you. All right. Okay. All right. I gotta get on to the next thing. I love
Okay,
you.
bye. I love you.
Okay. All
Bye.
right. Talk to you soon. Okay. Bye. All right. If you didn't know her before, now you know her. Isn't she a national treasure? Um, I'm verklempt. Verklempt? Is that how you say it? Um, Our next bit is a celebration of other fantastic work. Every year at the Southern California News Group, we put together a list when I say we, my colleagues and I put together a list of books and works that we felt were particularly resonant in that moment, in that year, from Southern California authors. And it's called Noteworthy. And I talked to my colleague, Eric Peterson, the books editor, about our list this year. And please just join us for the conversation. I talked to him earlier today. Julie, can you roll the tape, please? Thank you. Well, everybody, it's my pleasure to welcome the SCNG Books editor, Eric Peterson. And just so you know, this is the guy who's the driving force behind the fantastic books coverage in our section that goes out to all of our newspapers every week. And he also produces the weekly Books Pages newsletter, which comes out every Friday. And that's a vital addition to the region's conversation about books and literary culture that I think personally is not only entertaining, but really necessary. And you'll find that out if you subscribe. So subscribe. Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Sam, thank you for having me. I am so glad to be here for Noteworthy and for, just for all the book talk that we have today.
Can you believe this is 4 years that we've been doing Noteworthy?
I cannot believe it. It seems like we just started, but and I'm still trying to read all the books, so even
Yeah,
better.
me too. Me too. Well, let's talk about our noteworthy salutes. That's something unique to our news group here at the Southern California News Group. The complete
Absolutely.
list, yeah, the complete list is dropping as it always does at the end of the month in our premium magazine, our Books and Arts issue, and that's available to subscribers. But before it hits readers, I want to know if we can talk a little bit about the how and the why of Noteworthy and maybe why it's different than some of the other recognitions. I mean, there are lots of book awards and lots of celebrations of literature throughout Southern California and throughout the country, but our approach is a little bit different and I love it. And I want you to talk a little bit about our philosophy. So,
Absolutely. I can do that. And thank you. So you and I know, because we've talked about this a lot, what we didn't want to do is say, here are the 10 best, because I think both of us feel like that is not, it's just not even accurate, because it is, or the 12 best. But in any case, it reduces things. It makes it into a competition. This is not a competition. Reading is not a competition. Literature is not a competition. It is about finding things that you connect with. And what
yeah.
we do is we are looking for things that connect with people, that create conversations. In California, Southern California. And what we did was we looked at books and authors who we spoke with through this year, and we have spoken with some incredible, incredible authors. And as with each year, we're saying here's 10 or 12 who we think are fantastic, that depending on what your tastes are, maybe you don't want to read all 10 or 12, but maybe uh, you won't go wrong with any of them. And so we find great stuff that people connect with, and as far as we're concerned, that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely. And at the start when we're putting together this list, I always think, are we going to have enough? But we have so many, the vibrant culture in Southern California and really California as a whole. But everywhere you look, there are writers and artists doing incredible work. And this year we had so many, we actually had to bump it up from 10 to 12 because it was just so full of fantastic work that we didn't, want to ignore.
That's absolutely true. It is never a case of, oh gosh, I hope we have enough.
Yeah,
I'm always feeling bad, like, oh, but what about this one? And what about this one?
yeah,
So there's so many great things to read. And we can even talk about some of them now if you want to.
yeah. What are some highlights that really stuck out to you that
So
we
for me, this is funny because I did this interview around the time that we did this last year. I spoke to Percival Everett about his book James. It was not out yet. It's as you may have heard, it's a really great book.
ah,
Um, and just so sometimes when people hear like great book or important book, they think, oh, that it's going to be like homework. No, it is just a joy. It's a joy to read. It's rich with meaning, rich with emotion. It's about our history. It's about it's about a lot. And at the same time, it is just Absolutely, just a wonderful read, and I loved it. I love talking to him. He is there's a if you look at some of the headlines, people say, "Oh, he's shy or is press shy." He's a guy who puts it all into the book, and then he wants the reader to. He even said something to me. I won't remember exactly the quote, so don't quote me. But he said something along the lines of, "Anything I say about my books can be disregarded," which of course is not true. But he just wants the reader to enjoy it. I had a great time talking to him. He was really fun. So that was one of the main ones, and it also, as you know, won the National Book Award. And I'll
Yes.
I'll just also throw in, as did we talked about Soldiers and Kings. Michael Schaub interviewed Jason De Leon for us,
Yeah.
and so we had the two National Book Award winners this year.
One
Uh,
fiction, one nonfiction. De
one
Leon.
fiction, one,
Yeah.
yes. And I couldn't be prouder that we had recognized those books for their quality and that they would connect with our readers. And then it's a real joy to say, and see that they connected far beyond Southern California as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They were an incredible part of the national conversation. And the amazing thing about Percival Everett's book was that people might not realize it is kind of a retelling of Huck Finn from Jim's point of view, which is completely startling and just shifts the paradigm entirely. And it was like you said, it was important, but it didn't feel like homework. It was legitimately such a compelling read. You turned me onto it early when you were saying that you were having an interview with him. It gave me the heads up that a new book was coming out. Um, yeah, fantastic stuff. But not
And,
everything.
and I will say, if you go back and read Huckleberry Finn too, they're so, they just, I can't imagine people's shelves will not just have them together, going forward. They're so great together.
Yeah, it really, really just rounds out the idea of American history. It was just so
Mhm.
beautiful. Um, Not all of the books that we talk about in Noteworthy are critically acclaimed, although many are. I mean, it was amazing to see the amount of books from Southern California and California writers who were not only bestsellers, but were finalists for the Penn Faulkner Award, for the National Book Award, they were on Goodreads with Jenna. I mean, they were part of the conversation in really profound ways. But part of what I love about what we do at Noteworthy is not all of the books got that attention, but they should have got that attention. And one of them for me, and you can, and please jump in if there's something else from the list that you want to add, but partly because I had interviewed her, but Moon Zappa's Earth to Moon was a real standout for me, not only because it was a heart-rendering memoir about growing up in this highly dysfunctional family, but it was also funny. But more than that, it was an ethnography, if you will, of a particular culture, a celebrity culture in Los Angeles during the 70s and 80s. And I just felt that it was doing a lot of work. It was doing the heavy lifting of not only, good storytelling, but also kind of cultural commentary at the same time.
I can believe that, and I know you were raving about that book, and I saw it. A lot of people had the same feeling, like that they thought, oh wow, we read this maybe for nostalgia for Valley Girl, and then got a
Right.
lot more out of it than they ever expected.
Yeah, that's what I loved. And that's the thing. I mean, frankly, I haven't read all of these books. I now we've got 42 noteworthy books to go through. But that's the beauty of it, right? We have a reading list we can always go back to, you know.
The list of books that we have is fantastic, and in fact, I want to mention a few others.
Sure.
Um, Don Winslow was concluding his
Yeah.
trilogy, and also, he has said that he's not writing any more books. I don't know, I mean, I asked him at one point, I interviewed him for the previous book, and he said, "Yeah, that's my intention." So I take him at his word, but he has left us a trilogy, and he's left, an incredible body of work that is definitely worth your time. I also just want to mention this one's a little harder, but in September I had talked to Obi Kaufman, and he
Yes.
had this book, The State of Fire. It was about fire in California. And obviously, when we spoke, that was prior to the Palisades and the Eaton fires. And it's really hard. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of us, either were affected or know people who were affected. And this book is, I remember speaking to him, and he was blunt about, like, you have to live here, you have to get used to fire. And he didn't mean it like, oh, it's inevitable, let's not do anything. His point was, you have to accept that if it's inevitable, then maybe there are things that we should be doing right now ahead of time. So it's definitely, I would urge you to go back and read the interview with him, or I would say pick up this book. It's
Yeah.
filled with I think a lot of just thought-provoking, um, just thought. It's very thought-provoking about fire, and it's very hard for. It may not be the time for you to want to look at that right now, but at some point, if it becomes something that you feel comfortable looking at, I definitely would recommend going through it, or looking at one of his other books too. Just about, he writes about the deserts and many other things. His books are beautiful and smart and unique. He's not like somebody else. So that one really it moved me when I talked to him, and since then it's been even more powerful.
If I may, I know that you live in Altadena, so this was not only intellectual for you, but it was personal for you.
So many people have experienced things that were, far more profound. We're right on the edge. We're actually in Pasadena, but we're right on the edge there. And um, we evacuated and came back, and our home is here, which is not the case for a lot of people. And uh, it's going to be a long, long process for this community and for everyone here. And right now, just even, a trip up to the food outlet, is a reminder of everything that's happened. So it's not, even if we can't have it. I've been trying to write about it in the Book Pages
Okay.
newsletter, and I intend to keep writing about it, not exclusively, but just keep writing about it because it's important, and there's a lot of book related elements to it. But yeah, I'll
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah. Kaufman's book shot up to the bestseller list again after the fire catastrophes. And it was just became a very necessary book for a lot of people. All right. Well, everybody, our complete list again is dropping at the end of the month in Premium Magazine, and I hope you check it out. It will be online after that. But meanwhile, speaking of what's coming up, what have we got for the next coming week, Eric?
So this weekend, we have More From You and Lydia. That's running in print on Sunday. And then also, I interviewed Sonia Walger about her book Lion. And, and not to bring it back, Sonia also speaks about losing her home in the Palisades fire. That's very moving, and I appreciate that she shared that with all of us. And I will just add, so I'm not only talking about that. This book, Lion, is really, it's terrific. It's everything I was looking for. It's really well written. It's sort of, I don't want to say short because that makes it sound like I'm diminishing it, but it's just it's just great. It's just tight and great,
Wholesome
and
Free. Yeah. Well, who
yeah,
knows? Maybe next year it'll be on the Noteworthy list.
you,
Sounds
you
like
never know.
it has
You never know.
potential.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks, man. I so appreciate you coming by as always, and happy reading.
Thank you. You too. Take care, everybody.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I have to thank our production manager, Julie Corlett, the Oz behind the curtain, as I always do. And we hope you've enjoyed the conversation tonight. I certainly did. Bookish will be back again next month with another lineup of great authors. We've got Megan Dahm and Matthew Spector. So please come back and join us for that. Meanwhile, you can catch up on all of our past episodes and check out other virtual programs too at scng.com/virtual events. If you'd like to share your thoughts from today, or if you have additional questions, or if you want to say anything at all, please just email us at events@scng.com. And if you want to give me suggestions or talk to me directly, reach me at sdunn, S-D-U-N-N, at scng.com. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you, and I'll see you again next time.